Ever wonder how many times Stewie Griffin, the little scheming megamind of the Griffin family, would have gone to prison if he was held accountable for all of his crimes? Today, we'll be doing just that. Stewie Griffin, the time-traveling, Cool Whip-obsessed, football-headed evil genius, has committed just about every crime in the book. Firstly, we'll be breaking down all of his crimes, starting with the smallest charges. Secondly, since the show takes place in the fictional town of Quahog, Rhode Island, we will be using Rhode Island laws and sentencing. With that out of the way, let's begin our deep dive into the crimes of Stewie Griffin. Starting off small, we delve into Stewie Griffin's numerous cases of theft and property crime. In Baby Not On Board, the Griffin family embarks on a road trip, mistakenly leaving Stewie behind. However, as his food supply dwindles, he faces a grim reality and reluctantly seeks employment at McBurgertown to fend for himself.
Welcome to McBurgertown. Can I take your order?
Skipping most of the adventure, Stewie's turn in the working world is not exactly a model of hard work and integrity. His venture at McBurgertown soon morphs into a quest for immediate gratification when he starts eating the food that he's supposed to prepare and serve to the customers. Despite the humor in watching a baby attempt to manage a fast food job, consuming company property without payment is still a legal violation classified as theft from an employer, even if it seems trivial within the context of the show. This offense would subject Stewie to a charge of larceny, carrying a potential fine of $500 and, depending on the severity, possible jail time. In Road to Rupert, the episode presents a significant escalation in Stewie's crimes. The plot kicks off when Brian inadvertently sells Stewie's beloved teddy bear, Rupert.
Give you $1 for this.
Sold.
Even worse, the new owner, Sanford, refuses to return the cherished toy.
I'm sorry, but that bear belongs to Timmy.
In an effort to reclaim Rupert, Stewie and Sanford agree to settle their dispute with a ski race down a treacherous mountain, with Rupert as the prize if Stewie emerges victorious. Despite his bravado and cunning, Stewie loses the race. Stewie and Brian conspire to steal Rupert back by force, employing scalding hot tea and enlisting the assistance of Crone, a butler. Their getaway even involves the additional crime of carjacking an innocent bystander.
Get out of the fucking car!
Stewie's sharp wit and his flippant remark about the nature of their crimes reflect a disturbingly self-aware villainous persona.
Did we just carjack someone?
We sure did, Brian. We sure did.
Even we're not aware how to classify Stewie's crime in this one. Grand theft auto? Carjacking? Armed robbery? For the first offense at McBurgertown, Stewie would likely face a charge of larceny for the theft of food, resulting in a modest fine of $500. However, his escapades in Road to Rupert raised the stakes significantly. Armed robbery and carjacking carry far graver consequences. While life imprisonment is the harshest penalty, Stewie's juvenile status would mitigate the sentence to 25 years in prison and $100,000 in fines. In Family Guy Season 7, Episode 13, titled Stew-roids, Stewie finds himself humiliated at a party after being physically beaten up by another toddler.
Again.
His defeat marks a rare and ego-crushing moment for the typically self-assured baby genius, setting the stage for his next questionable decision. In an effort to help his son regain confidence and physical dominance, Peter takes Stewie to the gym. During their workout session, Stewie is introduced to the world of muscle-building enhancements and becomes encouraged to try steroids. Initially, the results appear positive as Stewie's physique transforms dramatically, allowing him to exude newfound confidence and power. However, the darker side of steroid use soon reveals itself. In most jurisdictions, steroid use without a medical prescription is classified as a serious offense. Possessing or using anabolic steroids unlawfully could result in a $5,000 fine, and in more severe cases, even jail time. Stewie's reckless embrace of illegal performance enhancers adds yet another criminal infraction to his growing list of transgressions, reflecting his consistent pattern of poor decision-making and moral ambiguity. In This Little Piggy, Stewie accompanies Brian to a folk music festival where they encounter a free-spirited hippie girl. The encounter takes a wild turn when she propositions them for a threesome, setting up an awkward yet risque moment for the duo. Before anything can transpire, the girl unexpectedly overdoses on cocaine, collapsing before their eyes. Stewie and Brian opt not to report the death or seek help. Instead, they dispose of her body by adding it to a pile of other deceased hippies.
Wow, a lot of people OD at these things.
While their actions may not technically constitute murder, the criminal act of concealing a death or desecrating a corpse remains a serious offense. Under most legal systems, including Rhode Island law where Family Guy is set, Improperly handling a dead body is considered a felony. If Stewie were held accountable for his part in this crime, he would likely face 5 years in prison along with a $10,000 fine. In one of the most surreal and boundary-pushing episodes of Family Guy, titled Stewie is Enceinte, Stewie's mad genius takes a disturbingly personal turn. Motivated by his deep-seated bond with Brian, Stewie decides to create a unique, albeit horrifying, solution to their relationship. Using a fertilization machine of his own invention, Stewie takes Brian's DNA and impregnates himself without Brian's knowledge or consent. This bizarre and unsettling scenario unfolds with both humor and discomfort as Stewie embarks on a journey of self-inflicted pregnancy. The episode escalates the absurdity with a montage depicting the grotesque progression of Stewie's pregnancy. Viewers are treated to a surreal sequence that blurs the line between comedy and discomfort, one that, in the spirit of fairness, everyone must endure together. For this single extraordinary transgression, Stewie would be facing a 30-year prison sentence and $100,000 in fines if judged by real-world legal standards. His unrestrained scientific experimentation and complete disregard for consent demonstrate once again his dangerous combination of genius and sociopathy. Stewie Griffin's sharp tongue isn't his only weapon. His colorful threats paired with his violent tendencies sometimes go far beyond typical toddler tantrums. In Season 4, Episode 20, Patriot Games, Stewie becomes a bookie and takes a $50 bet from Brian on a boxing match between Carol Channing and Mike Tyson. Brian bets on Iron Mike. Duh!
You've got Carol Channing, the actress, beating Mike Tyson, the boxer.
And of course, Brian loses the bet when Carol Channing pulls off the biggest upset of the century. I guess we know who Jake Paul's fighting next. Everything's fine on the surface, but we can tell there's just something slightly off about the way Stewie is going about his debt collection.
I'll pay you soon.
Yeah, well, here's a suggestion. Have the money by tomorrow and there won't be any problems.
Just 24 hours later, Stewie is understandably anxious to get his $50 back and ambushes Brian in the bathroom. That's when things take a turn for the worst. I'm just gonna let the evidence speak for itself.
What the hell?
Yeah, you gonna give me my money?
You freaking psychopath!
Clean yourself up.
And the intimidation doesn't stop there. With Brian still ducking him, Stewie initiates a legendary beatdown that would put even Tony Soprano to shame. After a push down the stairs, a few cracks of a golf club, a bullet to the knee, and finally a flamethrower to the face, Brian finally agrees to pay up.
All right, let's go to the bank.
In the talented Mr. Stewie realizes Rupert belonged to Chris before being handed down to Stewie. This leads Stewie to giving Rupert back to Chris in anger. However, things take a turn for the worse when Chris takes a liking to Rupert again. Overcome by rage, Stewie decides to go on a trip to come to his senses.
I need to take a trip. You know, go on a spiritual journey.
During this trip, he realizes what he must do is kill Chris and Rupert.
I have to kill Chris and Rupert right away.
He calls Chris and Rupert to a house in the woods.
Hey, Chris, just checking to see how long before you and Rupert get here.
He reveals his master plan of killing Chris in the inn during dinner, and when Chris tries to escape, he knocks him out and takes him on a boat to a lake. However, Chris wakes up and they have an epic fight in the boat. In the end, Stewie manages to win and throws Chris off the boat. Then, when Stewie realizes that Chris meant to give Rupert back all along, he feels bad and tries to save Chris's life. In the end, Chris manages to live. But this shows how Stewie was ready to kill his own brother over Rupert. This also comes under attempted murder legally. Now, since the amount involved is only a measly $50, we can't give Stewie the maximum penalty for extortion itself, but pairing that with the violent charge of assault with a deadly weapon, and the attempted murder of his brother, it's safe to say he's getting life in prison for this one, and fines totaling $500,000. Stewie Griffin's criminal record is nothing short of impressive. A staggering compilation of heinous acts, driven by intellect and malice. Adding up all his crimes to this point, we arrive at a grand total of 90 years in prison and $715,000 in fines. A sentence befitting the world's most dangerous baby. His reign of chaos may be fictional, but the sheer breadth of his offenses paints a chilling portrait of a villain hiding in plain sight, within a diaper and a charming British accent. Now, the crimes start heating up. En route to the North Pole, our usual suspects, Stewie and Brian, travel to the North Pole to find Santa Claus. When they discover he is no longer capable of doing his job, they take things into their own hands.
And I'm going to kill you!
Setting off in Santa's sleigh, they attempt to deliver the presents themselves, but things go horribly wrong. Crash landing and breaking into their very first house, They are discovered by the family. What happens next is about what you'd expect. But let's just say it's not the best Christmas for that poor family. Stewie violently beats the father up with a bat, and then with the help of Brian, beats and subdues the mother and child too, tying them up against their will and leaving them there. In season 13, episode 1, The Simpsons Guy, Stewie abducts Bart's enemies and proudly shows them off to Bart. He takes Apu just for laughs too.
I know Apu's not your enemy, but I just wanted to say I took Apu.
Then, in season 4, episode 8, 8 Simple Rules for Buying My Teenage Daughter, Stewie beats up LaDawn's boyfriend, ties him up, and locks him in Brian's car trunk.
Here's your iPod so you can listen to the streaks while you gasp for air.
He also drugs and frames her to get her fired from babysitting.
They were taking eczema and touching each other.
Add up these charges, and Stewie is facing multiple life sentences or 70 years and up to $500,000 in fines. In an episode previously mentioned, Baby on Board, Quagmire and Cleveland are sent to check up on Stewie when he's left home alone.
Well, actually, we could call Quagmire and Cleveland.
When they arrive to check up on him, Stewie, thinking they are intruders, knocks them out with tear gas. When Quagmire and Cleveland wake up, they find themselves strapped to chairs with their only entertainment, an unending infomercial about satellite TV troubleshooting. Turns out, Stewie skips traditional torture devices in favor of psychological torment. At the end of the episode, they both are still chained up, and they're reciting every line word for word.
/help. So sit back and enjoy DirecTV. Thanks for joining us.
Stewie's genius lies in proving you don't need physical harm when you have soul-crushing monotony. However, this does constitute psychological torture and, again, kidnapping. For torturing Quagmire and Cleveland, Stewie wouldn't just be looking at a slap on the wrist or a couple of therapy sessions. His sadistic mind games would rack up a sentence of 150 years in prison. That's a century and a half behind bars, enough time to watch all his futuristic inventions become obsolete. The highly intelligent and somewhat sinister infant from Family Guy is known for his grand ambitions of world domination. His intelligence far surpasses that of a typical baby, but his mind doesn't just focus on conquering the world. It also harbors darker tendencies, including a chilling involvement in the most heinous crime imaginable, murder. Season 5, Episode 7, Chick Cancer, features Stewie acting a little overdramatic when Stewie catches his wife, Olivia, playing house with another man. For Stewie, this is no simple misunderstanding. He leaves the house in anger and sets it on fire, leaving the young couple to burn. Let's just say, Stewie doesn't take betrayal well. Now, since we're counting, that's arson plus 2 homicides. As we know, in Stewie's world, betrayal is not easily forgiven. His violent tendencies and complex personality make it clear that any act of disloyalty is met with brutal consequences. In The Man with Two Brians, Stewie talks to new Brian, eventually finding out he violated Rupert. He is devastated when he finds out new Brian has violated his beloved stuffed bear Rupert, an object of deep attachment to Stewie. In his mind, this is a betrayal, and he reacts with a sense of hurt and anger that leads to a darker outcome. Stewie, unable to cope with the betrayal, is seen dragging a garbage bag, visibly bloodied, towards the trash bin. The bag's contents are left to the imagination. As the episode unfolds, it's revealed that new Brian's fate is even darker than initially imagined. He allegedly kills himself, and his dismembered body is placed in the trash. Now, even though it didn't happen on screen, it's pretty obvious what went down. Then, in season 19, episode 5, La Famiglia Guy, Stewie finds out Brian ate his Stelladoro breakfast cookies. This seemingly small infraction sends Stewie into a rage. While this may seem trivial, Stewie's obsession with control and his inability to tolerate disloyalty lead to a far more intense reaction. Stewie proposes that he and Brian go out for a bit of fishing.
Ah, no problem, Brian. No problem at all. Hey, what do you say you and I do a little fishing?
Fishing is a euphemism for a more sinister act. While on the fishing trip, Stewie takes his revenge to a deadly extreme. After luring Brian into a false sense of security, Stewie suddenly pulls out a revolver and shoots Brian in the back of the head. This shocking moment of cold-blooded violence highlights Stewie's willingness to kill when he feels betrayed or slighted. In Send in Stewie, Please, Stewie finds himself in a troubling situation. He is sent to a therapist, setting the stage for an unexpected and unsettling sequence of events. What begins as a routine therapy session quickly spirals out of control when the therapist starts experiencing a heart attack. In a desperate moment, the therapist, struggling to breathe, asks Stewie for his heart medication to ease the pain. This request adds to the tension as the therapist is in distress, hoping Stewie will step in and help. Stewie is forced to confront his choices in the face of someone's life at stake. As Stewie walks towards the heart medication, something shifts within him.
Except there's one person that does know the real me. That's you.
I don't understand. Why aren't you getting my medication?
In a dramatic moment of indecision, Stewie changes his mind halfway through. His hesitation suggests that Stewie might not be as cold-blooded as he appears, but in the end, his decision not to help leads to even darker consequences.
It's because I can't have anyone know the real me. And so you must die.
Ultimately, Stewie's decision is fatal. He lets his therapist die, believing the therapist's knowledge of his true self makes him a threat. Although Stewie later expresses regret, he is solely responsible for the death.
Brian,
Yeah?
I did something awful.
Do you want to talk about it?
No.
In Leggo My Mego, in a Taken parody, Meg gets kidnapped by sex traffickers in Europe, and Stewie and Brian have to go save her.
Stewie, I think there's only one way we're ever going to see Meg again. You and I have to take matters into our own hands.
During the chaotic rescue mission, Stewie racks up a body count. He kills 3 of the bad guys with ease, demonstrating his lethal skills and readiness to eliminate anyone in his way. These violent moments are part of the parody's high-stakes action, but also highlight Stewie's ruthlessness. And finally, he shoots the guy in the head. Although in Stewie's defense, he did believe he was a sex trafficker. In Season 8, Episode 8, Doggone, to prove to Brian that his life has meaning, Stewie burns down a liquor store and kills a dog, showing no remorse for his actions and merely commenting, "Well, astray."
Wait a second, just to prove a point to me, you burned down a liquor store and murdered a dog?
Well, astray.
When you tally up Stewie's murders, the body count is staggering. At the very least, his actions would land him 5 life sentences, plus 20 years for arson. However, the full extent of his crimes could be far worse, as every proven instance of infanticide would increase his criminal record. Stewie's actions paint a picture of a character capable of heinous acts without hesitation, making him one of the most dangerous characters in Family Guy. Stewie Griffin's time-traveling adventures often lead to chaotic and dangerous situations, turning him into an unwitting war criminal. In Road to Germany, he steals a Nazi submarine, causing a panic among the crew. This act of sabotage would have severe historical and legal consequences. As Stewie escapes, his reckless driving sparks a chain reaction of police car crashes, endangering public safety. Later, he impersonates Adolf Hitler, trivializing one of history's darkest figures.
Hey guys!
Hitler!
His actions, including using military property and impersonating a high-ranking officer, could be classified as terrorism, carrying life sentences, or decades in prison if civilians were harmed. In Mr. and Mrs. Stewie, Stewie meets Penelope, a fellow toddler with a taste for evil. Their partnership escalates to terrorism when they set off a bomb revealing their penchant for destruction. The duo's criminal exploits span blowing up the Great Wall of China and the Eiffel Tower, and even sparking a nuclear war between India and Pakistan.
We blew up the Great Wall of China, bombed the Eiffel Tower, and look at this note I sent off. Dear Pakistan,
Up yours. Love, India.
The most catastrophic act comes when Stewie unleashes a tidal wave to destroy Copenhagen, a city of over 600,000 people. Even if earlier bombings caused no casualties, the tidal wave would result in mass devastation and countless deaths. The sheer scale of his crime would earn Stewie a never-ending prison sentence, far surpassing a lifetime of imprisonment. Stewie Griffin's criminal activities in Family Guy range from assault to first-degree murder, each carrying significant legal repercussions. Altogether, these criminal actions from terrorism, as well as those listed in the Midway segment, would have resulted in a total of more than 40,000 years in prison and $1.4 billion in fines.